But thank you all for coming. My name's Laura Mills, and I work at the Fowler branch, and I just wanted to welcome everybody. And we are so glad to have the Goodwin Forum, and we're really happy to have Minuteman Media Network filming this program tonight so that people that couldn't make it will be able to watch it later. It's been a lot of fun for the library to be a Safe Routes to School Alliance partner. We're so happy to be able to support walk, bike, and roll days to school. It's a real community building thing. We've been working with Mothers Out Front and Bike to School Concord and the police department, and it's terrific. The Friends of the Library, some of you might know, sponsor a terrific Bike for Books program where it's for all ages and it's all year round because people in Massachusetts eat ice cream all year round. But after 10 trips to the library, you show your helmet, you get a free gift card for ice cream. So it's very popular. Our library became the first certified sustainable library in the state in May of 2024. And we're really proud of that fact, and encouraging active transportation like walking and biking and leaving our cars behind when we can is just something we're really happy to do, but we really want to make it safer for everybody. So I'm really happy to introduce Linda Neiman of the Concord chapter of Mothers Out Front, who's been working super hard on this, and she's going to introduce our speaker. So thanks.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Linda Neiman. I'm one of the coordinators of Mothers Out Front. As Laura mentioned, we have been working at the library, Bike to School Concord, and other groups in town to make it easier for residents to choose walking and biking whenever they can. It's great for the planet and great for our kids. However, we know that some people do not feel safe biking or walking in certain areas of Concord, which is why we are so pleased to have Dr. Firth here to come and speak with us tonight. Dr. Firth is a professor of civil engineering at Northeastern University and an expert in pedestrian and cycling safety. He is a recipient of 3 Best Paper Awards from the Transportation Research Board for work in public transportation planning and in traffic signal control, and has received Lifetime Achievement Award from the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals for his development of the level of traffic stress approach to bicycle network planning. He has been, Peter has been so generous with his time. He gave up a whole Saturday afternoon to bike around Concord to identify the different troublesome spots we have in town. And he has made time to meet with town staff to discuss some of his great ideas. So we are so grateful that he is here, and we are really excited to hear his talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, all the great people here at the library. And thanks to the town for welcoming me. I realize, so, I'm here for an evening. I'm going to say all these radical ideas. But really, nothing's going to happen unless it makes sense to you, and then it takes the next step, and the next step, the next step. So I want to start with, I learned... How do I move to the next one? Just as a first little introduction, I learned that you folks in Concord have decided to invest $2.5 million in safety. And when I met with some of the DPW staff, they asked for advice on, they said, we need advice on how best to use this. So I gave it to them, but I want to share with you these ideas in public so you can push it as well. The first one, just a general idea, I believe in magic. It's called crossing islands. When you have to cross a street and there's no island, you remember how your mother taught you, look both ways. Okay, I don't see anybody coming this way. I don't see anybody coming that way. Wait. Maybe by now there's somebody coming this way. And your distance to cross, so the first lane, okay, the car's coming from not that far, but the second lane, they're coming from, you put a crossing island there. And it's so simple, even a child can do it. Hey, wouldn't that be nice? You just look this way. There's nobody coming, you walk. There is somebody coming, they're going to stop. Because when you have to go through that island, it just gives a driver a sense of confinement. Like, they almost certainly will stop, and if they don't, the next car will. Then you walk to the middle and repeat, and you can be sure the cars are going to stop for you there. And here's a little secret that I'm not supposed to say, but these are really good for drivers too, because when a pedestrian is crossing, you have to stop for them only until they get to the island. That takes about 4 seconds. So it's so efficient. You just stop, let the person cross and go. And then here's what else is magic about them, is that they slow down traffic. Because basically you're putting a big island in the middle of the road. And now you have to go around it. And whenever you don't have a straightaway, that just slows people down. So I got the chance to live in a couple of European cities, and they were everywhere. These crossing islands are everywhere. My son had to cross a pretty busy street to get to his elementary school. He was in 5th grade. No problem, because there was a crossing island. They are so rare in the United States. I mean, to find one, I know where they are. I tell you, oh, there's one in Norwood. Yeah. Oh, I found one here in Cambridge. They're so rare. Why? There's no reason they should be rare. We should just, many of you have seen curb bump outs. Somehow those became popular in around 2000. At a crossing, there's a corner. It's kind of a wide crossing, so they'll bump the corners out. That's not bad. A crossing island is much better. I'll take both if there's room enough for them. But if there's only room enough for one, I want the crossing island. That's the way that kids, and I'm going to be older one day. I'm going to need a crossing island. So please do it for me. All right. And as a close cousin of the crossing island is you just put this knockdown sign in the middle of the street, that says state law, stop for pedestrians. It's not a real island, but man, does it work. Then the second thing is speed humps. Again, in the European cities where I lived, in the Netherlands, I'll stick with the Netherlands, they are everywhere. Why are they everywhere? Because the government imposed them on everyone? No, because the citizens wanted them. Because, I used to live in a different suburban town, and we had a meeting once, and we said to the city officials, we'd like there to be speed humps in our neighborhood. And they said, oh, we don't do that. Well, why not? Well, because if we did them in your neighborhood, every other neighborhood would want them. Oh no, local government giving the citizens what they want. That should never happen. So what's the case back in the Netherlands where I got to live for a year, and is now it's taken over in Boston, it's taken over in Somerville. There's a new attitude that says the owner of the streets, that's you, the city, the owner of the streets has an obligation to make them safe. Before, when citizens would complain about their speeding drivers, what would the city do? They'd put up yellow diamond-shaped signs. You've seen them. Go slow. Slow. Please go slow. This is like a great big announcement that says, that's of the city announcing, we are impotent. We can't do anything. They know full well those signs do nothing. They hope it's going to placate whoever's complaining. That's all. It does nothing. For years, they did nothing. We can't do anything. It's not our fault. It's the drivers that are going too fast. It's not our fault. This new attitude that says, you own the road. You have an obligation to make it safe for the kids who are going to cross, the people who are going to be walking there. Just like if you own a construction site, you can't say, oh, well, the workers are behaving unsafely. No. If you're the owner of the construction site, it's your obligation to make it safe. And there are many ways to slow people down. Speed humps they're inexpensive and they work. And they don't lower the average speed. And actually, nobody cares about the average speed. They extinguish the extreme speeds. Traffic engineers like to talk about 85th percentile. I've seen them at presentations, and they'll say, "Oh, well, the 85th percentile." They hear a nervous parent complaining about speeding, and they'll say, and the traffic engineer will say, "Well, we measured it, and the 85th percentile speed was only 27 miles an hour." Yeah, well, that means 15% are going faster than 27. And let's see, this street has, let's say, 1,000 cars a day. 15%, that's 150. That's 150 chances to kill my kid. And you want me to relax? So it's not the average speed we're after, it's the extreme speed. And so speed humps really work. And then the third piece of advice is appropriate speed limits. Here in Massachusetts, it's been really hard for cities and towns to apply appropriate speed limits. All the laws about speed limits, this is a well-kept secret. But I'll let you know. The laws about speed limits were not made to make you safe. They were made to protect you, the motorist, against unscrupulous municipalities who want to give you a speeding fine. There actually are some towns, none in Massachusetts, but there are some towns in Alabama and Tennessee I've read about where they make all their money with speeding fines. They have a highway coming through, with a speed limit 50, and then somewhere near the edge of town is a speed limit 25, and just beyond that sign, boom, they just pull people over one after another, one after another. So we want to protect you, drivers, against speeding traps. So it's been really hard to set a speed limit that's appropriately safe. So I'm glad to say that Massachusetts has had some changes in this procedure. One is it allowed any municipality, and Concord has opted in, to change their default speed limit to 25 miles an hour in thickly settled areas. So I was on some stretches when Linda and some others here in this town escorted me on a bike ride, showing me around town, and I saw this 35-mile-an-hour speed limit right in the middle of a neighborhood with houses all around it. What's going on there? And I told him, you could solve this problem just like that. All you have to do is say, we want to have 25-mile-an-hour speed limit because that's the default. If it's a thickly settled area, then the default speed limit is 25. You don't have to do a speed study to prove that's just the default. And what's a thickly settled area? Thickly settled means, it's defined by the state. It means 7 homes in 13-20 feet. It's actually stated another way, but it basically in averages is like 6.6 homes per quarter mile. So that's, if you got 7 homes in a quarter mile, that's it. So here's an example on Thoreau Street where there's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. This is just going, the high school is over here. So here's the entrance to the high school. And here you get a section, but you see the little cones there with people are trying to walk? So people are walking. This is a street where people are walking in the street because there's no sidewalk. Don't you think that a low speed is appropriate for that? If you wanted to change the speed limit on that section to 25, out of respect for pedestrian safety, you could. Because look, I counted the houses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. There are 8 of them in a stretch that's about 1,200 feet long. That's thickly settled. And so your default speed limit applies. So it's a lot easier before. So those are my 3 pieces of advice to start. Now, that was just the warm-up. Now about bicycling. Because I want to talk to you about making Concord a bicycling town. A lot of you know this already, but in case you don't, I got to tell you some of the reasons why bicycling is special. You know, people say, come on, there's all kinds of devices. There's roller skates, and there's roller blades, and there's pogo sticks, and there's skateboards. And are we going to have to, every little device that's there? Well, you know what? Walking is fundamental, wouldn't you agree? And then driving, I don't know if it's fundamental, but it's certainly everywhere. But, how is driving different from walking? Two things. It's got a motor and it's got wheels. Well, why do we have to skip from walking to having a motor and wheels? How about walking with wheels? And that's what bicycling is. It's mechanically assisted walking. You still move yourself, but with the benefit of the invention of the wheel, you can go so much faster. Now, bicycling is not zoomy fast, but you can go about 3.5 times faster at a just relaxed pace. Walking is about 3 miles an hour, bicycling is about 10 or 11. Well, if you can go 3.5 times as fast, that means the area that you can cover, the number of destinations that you can reach, is not 3.5 times more, but 3.5 squared, which is something like 10 or 11 times more places you can get to. So it's so practical. Like I looked at an address on Upland Road. Who knows? This might be one of your addresses. To get to Crosby's Marketplace, driving, you can do it in 8 minutes. Walking would take 52. I don't think many people are going to be walking there and back. But bicycling, look, 13 minutes. Only a couple minutes more than driving. And if you're like me and you want to get some exercise every day, look at this. You can get 13 minutes of exercise and it only cost you 5 minutes to get it. It's so practical. Yeah. So bicycling fits a New England town like Concord because, typical town, about 5 miles by 5 miles, something like that. What it means is that just about everywhere you want to get to, you can get there in 15 minutes or less on a bike. You can get to the train station, you can get to the high school, you can get to the library here, you can get to, the shopping areas. Bicycling is really special. Now, we all know it's carbon free. It's good for your health. It's good for the economy. Okay, money that Massachusetts people spend on gasoline, it doesn't stay in Massachusetts. We aren't making any gasoline here. The money we spend on cars, that just leaves. We're not building cars here. So you go by bike, that keeps your money here. Now you're gonna save a lot of money. What are you gonna do with it? Probably you're gonna you go to the theater. You're gonna go to coffee shops. You're gonna go buy more gifts. I don't know what you're gonna do, but it's good for the economy. It's good for equity because almost everybody can afford a bike. Not everybody can afford a car. It's good for children's development. Okay, I'm happy to be here with mothers out front. I'm a father. I got 4 kids. I got a bunch of grandchildren. And so happy that they can just go places on their bike. They can just hop on and yeah, it's great for that freedom. And it's good for our happiness. There's a 3-letter word we're really not supposed to say when you're talking about public policy, but I'm going to say it anyway. Bicycling is fun. It's really not a crime to spend public money to help the people be happy. And I had to put in this note, yes, we ride in the winter too. In the winter, I've heard it said that people go skiing, even in the winter. They go up on these mountains where it's cold and they go fast and they make a lot of wind. Yes, because they dress for it. So yes, I bike all winter. You just put on a good pair of gloves. You got to wear your wool socks. You cover your ears. I can ride in the winter. So when I teach my students at Northeastern, I make a distinction between an affluent country like the United States, and some poorer countries. Actually, it's a distinction between an affluent country like the United States of today versus the United States of, let's say, 1930. We have become an affluent country. We can afford so many things. But in the end, what affluence really should mean is have options so you can do what you want to do. I'll tell you one thing affluent people don't do is wait in lines. That's what they did in Soviet Russia. You know, that's what we did in the Depression, waiting in bread lines. But no, affluent people shouldn't have to wait in lines except when it comes to traffic. There's something wrong with this picture. Well, traffic is not my main concern today. My main concern is about bicycling. And, you know, you could be as wealthy as Bill Gates, and all that wealth cannot buy you a safe bicycling community for your kid to get to school, for you to do errands, for you to get around town. Because you could own private land and put all the wonderful trails you want on your private land, but to have a bicycling community, a community, well, that needs corporate action. That means, you know, we need our government to do this. And it fits for our affluent state, our affluent lifestyle. It doesn't fit to be like, oh, you know, we would like to have a walkable town, but we just can't do it. We would like to have a bikeable town, but we can do it. So the current state of affairs is one that leaves us facing a lot of traffic stress. The picture on the left, that's no stress. We're riding on a nice, quiet residential street. But the picture on the right, there are a few warriors out there willing to do it. The one you can see one out front, but a little further back. Here you can see bicycling in a little bike lane between parked cars on one side, two lanes of moving traffic on the other side. There are some people who are willing to do that. But most people, when that's the option, they say, no, thank you, I'm leaving my bike in the garage. Maybe this summer I'll take it with me when we go to the Cape and I'll ride on the Cape Cod Rail Trail. I love riding a bike. When they've asked people, what do you like doing on vacation? Number one was shopping, and number two is ride a bike. You know, or what amenities do you want near a new home that you build? Number one is a golf course. Number two is bike paths. People want it, but they don't want to fight and the danger from traffic. And that's the state of affairs you get when bikes are an afterthought. When bikes just, you lay out the street for everything else, and then you say, geez, is there any space we could fit in for bikes? So I helped develop a way of analyzing this. Another person, a friend of mine, who is the bike coordinator for the city of Portland, Roger Geller, he said, we need to recognize that only a small number of people are willing to ride in the kind of bike lanes we've been making. We've been doing it all wrong. There are people who are strong and fearless who will ride in anything. And then there are people who he called enthused and confident, who would ride in that kind of bike lane that I was showing you there. But the vast number are interested but concerned. I'm interested in riding a bike. It's what I like to do on vacation, but I'm concerned. I don't think it's safe. So I built on that by saying we can have an objective way for classifying our road segments by what level of traffic stress do they present, and that versus what traffic stress people are willing to tolerate. So level traffic stress, one is that's so little interaction with traffic. I'm not saying no interaction, but little enough that it's okay for children. Now, I don't mean 5-year-old children. You're not going to send your old 5-year-old out. You won't let your 5-year-old go out to cross the street. But I'm saying once a child is old enough that they understand, can interact with traffic enough to cross streets, they can follow rules. They can, so around 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, That's level traffic stress 1. Level traffic stress 2 is what most of us adults can handle. Level stress 3 is for enthused and confident people. That's like me. I love riding a bike, and I will put up with a certain amount of crap in order to do that. And then level 4 is the highest stress. And so I had this idea in my mind that I wanted to show people that, look, there is no low stress route to get from here to there. But how could I do it? So I was able to get a research project from the Mineta Institute at San Jose. We analyzed all the streets in San Jose and classified them by level of traffic stress. So if it's green, that's the lowest stress. And you see, it's mostly green, right? There's a lot of green. But see, those are the local streets, and they don't connect to one another. Then you see a little bit of blue, that's LTS2. You see some purple as LTS3. You see tan as LTS4. Well, if you are strong and fearless, here you go, baby. This is your bike network. Ride anywhere you want. It's yours. But let's say you're like, I can't handle a really high stress. Well, then this is your bike network, stress 3 or less. And you start to see some gaps in there, like, gee, there's a whole part of town that just disappeared. And then what if you're like the more typical adult? I don't want anything more than level stress 2. And now, whoa, now there's so many gaps. You can't get from here to there. And then what if you're a child? Yeah, forget it. You know, you can leave your house, go around the block, come right back in the garage. When with GIS, you can do some analysis. So we made, so show me sub-networks, connected areas that with level of traffic stress 2. So each color is a different sub-network. The colors are not connected to each other. If you see two that are real close, like these two are real close, no, there actually is you can't get from one to the other without going through a high stress link. So, SJCC there, San Jose Community College, it's got 10,000 students. Californians, you know, they like the sun. They like to be fit. They're kind of buff. I couldn't understand when I went on that campus. Like, where are the bikes? Are there no bikes? San Jose is flat as a pancake. It's an old lake bed. It's just flat. Where are all the bikes? Then I did this map and I see, yeah. Because unless you live so close that you may as well walk, you can't get there on a safe, low-stress bike path. And then with a tool like this, I was able to say, now what if we made improvements like this? What if on the long ones, we made some protected bike lanes, and some of the other short ones, we made regular bike lanes, and then some really small ones, we did some little intersection improvements here and there. And then with that slate of improvements, now the island that's connected becomes this. Now you can actually start to think about getting from here to there, a lot of places. So that's the concept of a bike network. What we're after is low stress connectivity. You got to have the two together. Connectivity without low stress doesn't mean anything. We already have that. Where you're legally allowed to ride, yeah, everywhere. We need low stress routes, but it's not good enough to have a wonderful low stress Bruce Freeman rail trail. We need to have a low stress network that's connected so I can get from my home to my shopping or to my work or to wherever I'm going. So the Stantec is doing a study with you all now, and I saw that they had a level of traffic stress, a map of Concord that they did. I didn't look into what, the first thing when I looked at it, it said, they got it all wrong. They made blue level of traffic stress 1 and green 2. I always did it the other way. So if blue is, they reserve really for the trails. That's what I call level of traffic stress 0. So then, but I don't know if any of you have taken time to look at this. I haven't studied it myself, but look at it and ask yourself. So here, here's where I think I'd be starting, and here's where I'm going. Can you trace a route that just stays on the green, that just stays level traffic stress, what they call 2? Or no, maybe you just can't do it, and you have to get on level traffic high stress. So that means you're not connected. So the vision that I hope you will pursue, like I said, is low stress connectivity. And it's really helpful to anchor that with some destinations in mind. Low stress, everybody should have a low stress ride to a train station. Nobody who wants to take a train into work in Cambridge or Boston should have to drive to the train station. A lot of you I know can walk, because Concord's got a nice, dense village. But a lot of Concord is not an easy walking distance. But everything just about is within a 15-minute bike ride. Ride a bike to the station. And the town center, to ride a bike to high school. Everybody should be able to ride to the middle school. Everybody should be able to ride to the elementary schools. Everybody should be able to ride to the 2 great recreational trails that you have near you, even if it's not commuting. People shouldn't have to drive their car to then go ride on the Bruce Freeman Trail. They should be able to ride from home and to Walden Pond. Maybe there are other important destinations that you want to put on there. And so that's where they should go to. Now, where should they go from? There might be some homes that are just so kind of remote on a high-stress road, you can't take care of it. So maybe not 100%, but you can set your target. We'd like to have 75% of homes people can have a low-stress ride to get to the high school, to get to train stations, something like that. Maybe 85%, 95%. So there's a big challenge now. How are we going to find the space for bike lanes? We already divvy up road space in so many ways. We got space for travel lanes. We got space for walking. We got space for parked cars. We need a space for our utility poles and maybe street trees. And now you want a 5th space? You want me to... Yeah, where are we going to find that? Well, one place you might find it is that some of our traffic lanes are wider than they need to be. The standard lane here in Concord, and that's not any different from the towns all around Massachusetts, is 11 or 12 feet. But the standard width of a traffic lane since time immemorial has been 10 feet. There's this chicken and egg problem. Do you make the vehicle to fit the lane, or do you make the lane to fit the vehicle, right? Well, lanes have been 10 feet wide since before motor cars, okay? That was established even back in the days when horses were pulling carriages. Those don't make it wider. It's got to be able to fit in 10 feet. So we have always made vehicles that can fit in a 10-foot lane. You cannot make, sell, drive a truck or a bus wider than 8.5 feet, 102 inches, unless you got one of those great big, wide vehicle signs with an escort truck in front of you. Maybe you've seen them on the freeway. Everything can fit in a 10-foot lane, and everything can even fit in 9 feet. And so that's the trucks that are 8.5 feet wide. Our cars, even if you're driving a pretty wide car, a minivan or an SUV, you're no more than 6.7 feet wide. You can fit in a 10-foot lane. You could fit in a 9-foot lane easily. And so Federal Highway Administration, they sponsored a study, a big study. Hundreds and hundreds of road sections and intersections. They got data from North Carolina, Michigan, and they found that narrow lanes, what they defined as 9 and 10-foot lanes, were just as safe as wide lanes, which they defined as 11 and 12-foot lanes. The outfit that did this research, they were the same people who, in an earlier study of rural roads, came in with a clear finding: wider lanes are safer. So these are not biased, just hippies or something. These were, responsible engineers, responsible statisticians, and on rural roads, they found it safer to have a wider lane. On suburban and urban roads, they found, you know what, no difference. You might be surprised and think, wait a second, if the lane is wider, that kind of gives you more room to maneuver, more room to recover if something goes wrong. Well, maybe yes, but on the other hand, the wider lane gets people going faster. So one helps safety, one hurts, and they just kind of balance each other out, and it's just as safe in a 10-foot lane. And then whenever you make a turn lane, now if the turn lane is long, then in some places they got at least turn lanes that are, 500 feet long, and the turn lane you're really driving in. But when you have just a left turn pocket, something that can fit 2 or 3 cars, you don't drive in those lanes, they're parking lanes. They're like a parking stall. You just pull in and park. And wait till you get your left turn signal and then you go. You don't need any wider space for a left turn lane than you need for a parking stall. So it's a rule of thumb that people have been following forever. You can make the parking lane, the turn lane a foot narrower than the travel lane. So that's one way we can find some space. So an example of that is right now the town is planning for for a project at the intersection of Main Street and Baker Avenue. They're going to redo the intersection with some good safety improvements. But I guess nobody told the designers, please be sure to provide some bike lanes. And the way things work, like I said, the standard way is bikes get the leftovers. So in the first column, you can see the Mass DOT minimum for things, for a sidewalk, for a bike lane, for the travel lanes. Mass DOT says 10 feet is the minimum width for a travel lane. So you're not breaking a Mass DOT minimum when you say 10 feet. They also want 10 feet for their turn lanes, which they don't distinguish between the long turn lanes and the short pocket lanes. So if you included the bike lanes and you add it all up, you need 51 feet. Oh, the road only is 50 feet wide, so there's a 1 foot deficit. But, there are things that can be shaved without really compromising safety. Well, what the consultant proposed was, for some reason, they left some unused space, a little bit, 1.7 feet on the north side. And they made the travel lanes 11, 10, and 11. You can see that in blue. And when you do that and you make the sidewalks a little bit wider than they are now, you end up with 2 foot. You can't call it a bike lane. A 2 foot, what we call it, is an edge offset. 2 feet from the white edge line to the curb. Well, you could, instead of, let's not waste any have unused space. If we shrank the lanes as the pink shows, 10-foot travel lanes, 9 foot for a pocket lane. And we compromise just a hair on the bike lane, make it 4.75 feet. Now it fits. You could do that. How much more does it cost? Nothing. It's just... and by the way, that unused edge space has sidewalk on it now. It's not like we're taking somebody's grass and trees. No, that's... That unused space on the north side, there is concrete sidewalk there now. So the change that I'm doing on the north side is proposing, why don't we put sidewalk now why don't we put sidewalk in the future where there already is sidewalk now? I don't think that's going to be too controversial. So that's an example of how we can find some space. Sometimes I feel a little desperate. Bicyclists are fighting for inches. And a few inches a few inches can really make a lot of difference for bicycling safety. And the second main place to find space for parking, for bike lanes, is where it's in conflict with parking. Parking is like bicycling in that it gets the leftovers, right? The public right-of-way, that's the right-of-way. That's the right, if you're going somewhere, it's not the public right of storing your private property. It's the public right of way. And then, oh, there's some leftover space. So why don't we let people park their cars there? So we got a conflict now between, hey, I want the leftovers. Bicyclists want the leftovers. Parking wants the leftovers. But here's a big difference. With parking, if you say, well, we could have, we need some parking spaces here to have we got a nice, beautiful, healthy commercial center. We need some parking spaces. Well, we could have some here, we could put them here, we could put some here, we could put some there. They don't have to be in a continuous line. Now think about doing that for bikes. We'll have a piece of bike lane here. Oh, look, we find a place for a piece of bike lane here. Piece of bike. No. For bikes, we've got to have continuous lines. So I'm going to challenge you to think more about how to manage parking. How is parking priced? Demand for parking will be crazy high if it's free, and people aren't. While everybody loves free parking, what people really want is available parking. When I get to a shopping center, if there's no place to park, I'm out of there. If I have to pay $1 an hour, I'll pay that. So, I was on the transportation board in another town here in Massachusetts, in Brookline, and we developed a system where we realized that the employees were taking up so many of the curb spaces, so many of the most desirable spaces where you want customers coming and going. No, the employees were parking there and feeding the meters, and if there were 2-hour limits, 2 employees would go and, okay, I'll move my car to where your car is. They did the swap every couple hours. So we developed a program where we would look we looked at the nearby residential streets, and we'd say, okay, this street can handle 8 parked cars without making a parking shortage on this street. We give out 8 permits, or we sell 8 permits to businesses for their employees. And that way we get the employees out of, the high value parking area. Yeah, maybe they have to walk a couple blocks. They can handle that. So those are some ideas about parking, managing parking. So as an engineer, let me tell you, here are some designs that I think will fit Concord's context. I'll say Concord. When I say Concord's context, you are unlike so many other suburban communities in America. You don't have any 4-lane roads, not counting Route 2. You don't have strip malls, and wow, you're such a nice place. But on the other hand, you don't have these great big wide roads. We got to live with what we have. So if you've got 28 feet of pavement, you can have bike lanes because the travel lanes can be 10 feet and a bike lane can be 4 feet. The truck drivers would rather have 11 feet. The bike riders would rather have 5 or 6 feet. But it's more valuable to have a real bike lane. At 4 feet, you can call it a real bike lane, especially when there's no curb and you're not afraid of hitting your pedal on the curb. So here's some streets that I've looked at. I think it may apply. I haven't measured the dimensions on a bunch of those streets. I think you have some streets in town that are 28 feet wide and that could be restriped to have bike lanes without having to move any asphalt or pour any concrete. If you had 32 feet of pavement, and I don't think you have any streets like that, but you have streets where there's public right-of-way that could be widened, then you can have your 10-foot travel lanes. You can have a buffer where you put some bollards or something like that, and then you have a separated bike lane, or what people call a protected bike lane. And that's really nice. Everybody feels comfortable riding there. So that's something to think about. It costs some money. It takes a little bit of space, a few feet of space that's there, but it's a whole lot less expensive than rebuilding the whole road. And then people ride bikes on the sidewalks here. There's a lot of bike riding that's going on sidewalks, especially kids getting to school. In Massachusetts, unlike in some other states, riding on a sidewalk is legal. The only exception is in business districts. So yeah, you shouldn't be walking and riding on, or I should not walking. You shouldn't be riding on the sidewalk right here. Although little kids, nobody will mind them. But riding on a sidewalk, it's only safe if you go pretty slow because the driveways, the intersections, it's not set up for people going at bike speed. So one thing to think about is we could maybe convert some of them into side paths, a bike path along the side of the road. There's a sidewalk, a side bike, a side path, along with some intersection treatments. There are roads that right now have no sidewalks at all. So maybe that's a good plan, good thing to put in your capital plan is to put not just a sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk along Walden Street, maybe put a 7-foot, and by the way, this number 7 feet that I give you, it's not in the manuals anywhere. The manuals all say 8 feet, but we don't really need 8 feet. 7 feet is good enough to do that. So, and then here's another, at the bottom, yeah, I'll just go right to the bottom because that's where the pictures are. This is something called advisory lanes. There are thousands of them in the Netherlands. There are thousands of them in Switzerland, Germany, Belgium, the UK. We're somewhere between 1 and 200, I think, in the U.S. They're quite unusual. But you have one in your next town over in Lincoln on Farrar Road. And that's a road that, like some of our suburban roads, doesn't have a sidewalk. So it's not only serving bicyclists, it's serving pedestrians. So this road, before those markings were put down, there were no markings at all. So where would you ride if you were riding a bike? Well, you'd probably ride near the edge. Where would you walk if you were walking? You would probably walk near the edge. This doesn't change anything. You just ride where you would ride and you walk where you would walk. And how about where would you drive if there were no markings on the road? Well, you'd kind of wherever you want. You could drive in the middle. And when somebody's coming toward you, you move over. Some people drive that way on these quiet residential streets. Or you could keep to the right. And how about now that those lines are there? Yeah, same way. You just drive wherever you want. You can drive in the middle if you like. You could drive near the edge. But here's the difference. When you are passing a bike, when there's no line, it's stressful. The bicyclist doesn't know, like, where are they going to go? The bicyclist is trying to shrink themselves into, the width of a little beanstalk. Once there's a line, I stay on my side of the line, you stay on your side of the line, and we're good. The line just takes away so much stress. If one of the pictures here shows walking past some pedestrians, so you stay in one side of the line, and it's so less stressful. So I think this is a great treatment for some of your roads they're not really through roads, but they have enough traffic. Roads like Upland and Harrington, I think Thoreau Street. There are a lot of streets that are good candidates for a treatment like this. And also on quiet residential streets, they don't need any treatment. And on commercial blocks, there you just need separated bike lanes because regular bike lanes are going to be double parking lanes. Everybody knows that. So we need separate bike lanes there. So I'm going to end now with 8 policy recommended actions. Number 1. I suggest, I don't know how your town government works, to have some kind of policy order designating these are the streets that we aim to have in our network, with a provision that says that any project that the town does touching these streets should advance or at least not impede the bike network. That will make sure we don't get a disaster like rebuilding an intersection at Baker and Main Street in a way that makes it really hard to bring bike lanes there in the future. Now, Cambridge and Somerville has followed. They're the real leaders in this kind of ordinance. Cambridge's ordinance is way stronger than this. It doesn't just say, here's the set of streets. It says, and DPW, you've got to do it in 5 years and the clock is ticking. So it's really strong and it's really effective. I don't think you're ready for something like that yet. But to say, here's where we want it, and we're going to work toward this, and we're going to, and so all of our plans, all of our actions, and so on, we're going to try to work toward this. I think that's an important first action. Second action, inventory your roads and determine those that are at least 28 feet wide and therefore amenable to bike lanes, and make some bike lanes. Maybe you want to do it on a trial basis. Don't do them all at once. Do one. See how it works. See how much people complain. Some people say, oh, the road, there are a lot of trucks on this road. You insult truck drivers and bus drivers when you ask them if it's difficult to stay in a 10-foot lane. Like, of course they can. Yes. And then if you say, but don't you think it's kind of tight, a 10-foot lane and a 4-foot bike lane, having a truck pass a bike like that? And I say, yeah, and having no bike lane is somehow going to make it less tight? No, actually having that line really helps. As a bicyclist, you hear the sound of the truck behind you. You can get really worried. It can be really stressful. When there's a line, you just say, you know what? I'm going to stay on my side of the line. And the truck driver doesn't want to hit you either. And, drivers, they don't really know where the right side of the vehicle is very well. When there's a line, they just say, you know what? I just better stay on my side of the line. It lowers the stress, improves the safety. Third, review your speed limits and lower them where appropriate. I think most of the time you have a feeling, you citizens and of government officials, you have a feeling of what an appropriate safe speed is. And Mass DOT has made it easier to lower speeds than it was before. I mean, a lot easier. So if you're an old timer like me, you just got drilled into you, oh, you can't lower the speed limit, Mass DOT's the bad guy, they won't let you, they won't let you, they won't let you. They still won't let you in some cases, but for most of the kinds of changes that I think you'd want to make here, they would. Then step 4, this is the big plan. Okay, so for every section that you've said, you've designated you want to have in your network, what's the treatment that's going to make it so that you got low stress bicycling there? For some, it's going to be build a side path. And you need to, of course, you need to study it. Where's the road and where's the end of the right of way? Do we have space? Is this, we can't be going through telephone poles, and we don't want to chop down a lot of trees. So where can we fit it? Is it take an existing 5-foot sidewalk? Is there a way to add a couple more feet to it? Or maybe the treatment should be to actually widen the pavement a little bit and then make protected bike lanes with some bollards to the advisory lane treatment, maybe something else. The regular bike lanes, of course. Then number 5, this deserved a special category. There's some special bottleneck situations, often involving MassDOT, like the Assabet River Bridge. MassDOT has a program for replacing deficient bridges. So you can be deficient by being structurally deficient, but you can also be deficient by being functionally obsolete. And that bridge is functionally obsolete. It has what it takes to serve motor vehicles and pedestrians, period. And Main Street has got to serve bicycling. I mean, if you want to connect your citizens to the Reformatory Branch Trail and the Bruce Freeman Trail, there ain't no way you're doing it except via Main Street. So Main Street needs to have bike lanes, so Mass DOT can help you out with that bridge, the Route 2 crossings as well. Then develop an evaluation tool, something like what I showed there for San Jose, where you can actually calculate so what fraction of homes has a safe bike route to the high school, has a safe bike route to a train station. We're doing this now in Boston. We've done a couple schools, magnet schools. People come from all over to go to Boston Latin School. We figured out that 6% of the residential addresses have safe access. And then in another school, even less. And then you can see, as your network is improved, you can put in your plan and see, oh, with our plan, then are we going to be at 85, 95%, which is where you want to be. Number 7, do a parking management plan. There's more reasons to do this than just bicycling. This is going to interest a lot of people. But how can we meet the needs of, we want economic vitality and so on, but parking does not just get the claim on leftover space. There's somebody else who wants leftover space now. And what's the best way to deal with that? Anybody who's going to be on this committee should be required to read Donald Shoup's book, The High Price of Free Parking. And then you're in a position that you can estimate the cost for all these different improvements, make a funding plan, and schedule the improvements and make in a capital plan. Most of these things are pretty low cost. Building sidewalks, side paths, it costs some money. But I like to make the analogy that bicycling, or to say that bicycling is really cheap, but it's not that cheap, okay? Compared to building a transit line, a rail line, oh, it's so cheap. Compared to building a highway, oh, it's so cheap. But it's not like just paint some lines and put up a couple signs cheap. I estimated once for Boston that we could build a network and it would cost $20 a year per person. And with $20 a year per person, we could get it all built out in about 10 or 12 years. That sounds like just an immense budget. I mean, that's just way beyond, way beyond Boston's budget for bicycling. But do you know how much, in Massachusetts, do you know how much we spend per person per year to subsidize transit? Well, at least in the Boston area, $600. And how much we spend per year to subsidize highways? Or, out of government expenditure to pay for highways. It's not all subsidy. You could say we pay in gas taxes. But where government is paying in highways about $480. And bicycling wants 20. I mean, it's almost like a rounding error. Would you just give us your spare change? The highway and transit, with your spare change, we could do a lot. I also like to make an analogy to skiing. Some of you probably ski, and I ask my students, so how much does a lift ticket cost these days? And they say about $100. $100. Wow, for $100, you get a ticket that you can ride on all the beautiful trails on a mountain for a day. I want to sell you a ticket for only $20, and you can ride on all the beautiful paths for a year. $20 per person per year is cheap. But it's not so cheap. It's because what's in our budget is like nothing. So my conclusions. Number one, bicycling brings an amazing convergence of concerns. The things that we say, oh, what our society needs. We need to address the climate crisis. Health, obesity, exercise, road safety, children's development and happiness, building community, economic vitality, equity. All these things would improve so much if instead of everybody traveling around in their great big box, went around on a bicycle. Second, the space and money demands of bicycling are small. They're affordable and they are achievable. There is actually very little sacrifice involved. People, they want to pit it as a fight, bicycles and the war on cars and so on. No, bicycles are small and they can be taken care of without that much trouble. And then the last thing is bicycling got nowhere before in the past. They got nowhere because it only got leftovers. They were take care of every other priority, and now let's see what we can do for bikes. So it's just time to recalibrate. if the vision can be, Concord wants to be a town where you can get around in a car, you can get around on foot, and you can get around by bike. And if making that bike network becomes a priority, you will achieve a future you didn't even dare dream of. And with that, I'm happy to answer some questions. Linda, I don't know what you'd like to do as far as the program.
We have to be out in about 20 minutes, so if
Okay.
you take a couple questions, if anyone.
I can only take a couple of questions. So, all right. Yes, sir.
Hi, fantastic talk. I'm on the bike committee in Lexington. I have a friend who's a cyclist who is very well read, who's actually a select board member, who says that study after study says that painted bike lanes do not improve safety. Is that true? And the second part of the question is, how would you rate on your level of traffic safety, level of traffic stress, a situation where you have a 4-foot bike lane that's just a painted bike?
Yeah.
1, 2, or 3, etc.
So the second one is easy to answer. That's level of traffic stress 2. If you're in where the painted bike lane, and the idea that don't improve safety, no, that's not true at all. So there's also a big difference between painted bike lanes, whether or not they're next to parking, and whether they're in a commercial area. A lot of painted bike lanes in the city, they're just double parking lanes. So you got it. They may as well not be there because you got to drive out in traffic. And if they're next to parked cars, you've got the danger of somebody opening their door, and you can get doored, and you want to shy away from the doors and so on. So, whereas a bike lane on a street where there's no parking and there's nothing that anybody wants to go to, what bicyclists are looking for is reliably car-free space. And really, the shoulders, they are reliably car-free. And yeah, I have never seen a single study that says bike lanes don't improve safety. There were a slew of studies done, 4 or 5, done around 2005 to 2010 period, in which some people alleged bike lanes don't add any safety. The only safety benefit they add is just by giving more pavement. And these studies, every single one of them, showed conclusively, no, it was a lot safer when you made a line, cars, you got your area, bikes, you have your area. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. I am very appreciative of all your comments about making most of our working streets and making necessary adjustments to make bicycling on them as comfortable as possible. Two things. One is you mentioned the reformatory branch trail a number of times. That's set differently from the Bruce Springer Rail Trail that has been a very long time shared natural trail. Bruce Springer Rail Trail did not start out that way. And there are a lot of people who, other than the landing circle, etc., there are people who like to walk on it, and it's not like just going somewhere to take a walk in the forest. It's like you go somewhere. So there's a piece of life. And it's always fun to share it with cyclists or walking in this kind of slower pace. When it is conceived as a bike highway, that kind of changes that experience and takes away from everyone else who's using it for other purposes. And connected to this, you didn't mention very much about electric bikes. When electric bikes are used more and there is a push
You know what?
towards that kind of changes.
Okay, so the what you're telling me, I've heard this before. So I don't have anything to say about that. I just don't know. I know it's a controversy. I can't settle it.
No.
Yeah.
I just mentioned the electric. But one question: how about the technique of making some roads one way for car traffic and allowing two comfortable bike lanes? I know.
Yeah. So that's another way. That's a good idea. That's a way to find space for car traffic is if you can make a road one way. But it depends on the kind of road network you have. You have to have a way for cars to go. Like I tell you, I actually thought of the idea of making Kai's Road one way and kind of having a one way circle around there. But it's a quarter of a mile. It's just so long, and there are a couple parking lots there. So if there's an opportunity for that, sure. But I don't immediately see it. But that is a way that some other cities have found space for bikes. Yes, sir.
Two things. One, we often get pushback about both speed bumps and lane narrowing from public safety agencies. And how you deal with, do you have any suggestions for dealing with that? And then maybe related, I'm all for lowering speed limits, but a lot of the notion is, well, lowering speed limits doesn't help. Right?
Yeah.
I think the most recent research suggests it does, but again, how do you?
Okay, so when you say public safety, you mean fire?
It's mostly fire.
Yeah. So like in Boston, in Somerville, they worked with the fire department. They said, what are your main response routes? We won't put speed humps there. We'll put speed humps everywhere else. So, yeah. So, we know where the fire stations are. And from the fire station, fanning out what are the main routes. And there are certain roads that's only going to be the last bit of where they're going. And there, the fire trucks, if they slow down a little bit, so they end up getting to the fire 10 seconds later, I think most people know fire departments are responding to traffic accidents all the time. So fire departments should be caring about road safety. And speed humps are going to save more lives. So enlightened fire chiefs are in support of them. What was the other thing you said?
Speed limits, right?
Oh, yeah, so is there any value to speed limits? So I used to be a skeptic too. I'd say drivers don't really respond to speed limits. They just drive however comfortable they are and they ignore the speed limit. To some extent, that's true. But when you see a speed limit sign 35 and you're going 25, you think, oh, I should be going faster. The more important thing is this. If you live on a street and cars are zooming by at 30, 35 miles an hour, and you go and complain, everybody's going to compare what they're doing to the speed limit. The question is not going to be, are they going at a safe speed? It's, are they speeding in a legal sense? If the speed limit is 30 and somebody's going 32, 33, they say, yeah, come on. We just can't say we have a speeding problem. You change the speed limit to 25 and suddenly, finally we have a speeding problem. It's the same speed problem, but now you've turned that speed problem into a speeding problem, and government officials, people will pay a lot more attention. So it's a good way for the town to set a norm to say, this is the behavior we expect. Because then, when the behavior diverges from what you expect, then it looks like it's a responsible thing for the town to go in and do something to slow traffic down. I think we better end it with one more question. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for the great presentation. Any advice on using the community, our political and committee process to sort of give our engineers permission to deviate from some of these standards? We've heard like the 11-foot width, the bike lane has to be 5 feet. We don't have room for it because that's the standard.
So it turns out Mass DOT has been working on this. They have a whole set of web pages I helped contribute to on speed management that if you're an engineer and you graduated from college years ago, you may not be aware of it. So these things are very accessible. You can find that out. The other important thing is to bring lessons from other cities and towns. The best way to prove that something can be done is to show that it has been done. Bring that to them.
I want to thank Dr. Firth for coming out here and everyone else for coming out on a Thursday evening to hear about this. If you haven't signed our sign-in sheet yet, please do so, and we can send you follow-up information and hopefully a link to the recording of the video. Thank you.